I heard the wine glass tap against crystal before I heard my father say the words that would end everything. "Monica, I think it's time you left." We were standing in my childhood home, the sprawling colonial in Charleston that my mother redecorated every 3 years like clockwork. 60 people filled the living room and spilling onto the veranda. My parents' 40th anniversary party. White linens. String quartet. Waiters in bow ties carrying trays of champagne I wasn't offered. My husband Jake stood beside me, his hand finding mine. I felt his fingers tighten. My father didn't look at me when he said it. He looked past me, toward the French doors, like I was already gone. My mother stood frozen by the mantel, one hand on her pearls. My younger sister Emma smirked from across the room. "Dad," I started. My voice came out smaller than I wanted. "You've made your position clear," he said. His voice was low, controlled. The voice he used in boardrooms. "This is a family celebration. I don't think you belong here anymore." The room went silent. 60 pairs of eyes turned toward us. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. You're not alone in this. Let me back up 6 months. My family runs money. Old Charleston money that started in shipping and moved into real estate development. My father, Richard Sterling, built Sterling Properties into a $200 million empire. My mother, Catherine, built a social empire to match. I was their eldest daughter. I was also their biggest disappointment. I didn't want the business. I wanted to teach. I got my master's in education and took a job at a public middle school in North Charleston. $28,000 a year. My mother cried when I told her. Not sad tears. Ashamed tears. "Teaching," she'd said, her voice sharp as glass. "Monica, we didn't send you to Vanderbilt so you could babysit other people's children." My sister Emma, 3 years younger, went to law school. Joined the family firm. Bought a condo downtown with help from Dad. She wore Chanel suits and had her nails done every week. She fit. I married Jake when I was 26. He was a project manager for a construction company, good job, decent salary, kind heart. My parents didn't come to the wedding. My mother sent a card that said, "We hope you'll reconsider." We eloped in Savannah with 2 witnesses and had barbecue after. For 5 years, we were happy. We bought a small house in Mount Pleasant. I taught 7th grade English. Jake worked his way up to senior PM. We had dinner parties with friends, went hiking on weekends, talked about starting a family. But my family? They iced me out. No calls on birthdays. No invitations to Thanksgiving. When my grandmother died 2 years ago, I found out from a cousin on Facebook. They held the funeral without telling me. I stopped trying. I thought I'd made peace with it. Then 3 months ago, an envelope arrived. Thick cream cardstock. My mother's calligraphy handwriting. An invitation to their 40th anniversary party. I held it in my hands for 10 minutes, just staring. Jake found me at the kitchen table. "What is it?" I showed him. "Do you want to go?" he asked carefully. "I don't know." I traced the gold lettering with my finger. "Why now? Why after all this time?" "Maybe they're trying," Jake said. He sat down across from me. "Maybe this is an olive branch." I wanted to believe that. God, I wanted to believe that so badly. So I RSVP'd yes. The weeks leading up felt like holding my breath underwater. I bought a new dress, navy blue, conservative, nothing my mother could criticize. Jake got his suit dry cleaned. We practiced small talk in the car. Just be yourself, Jake kept saying. But myself was never good enough for them. The party was on a Saturday in late September. Golden hour light, perfect weather, everything orchestrated down to the minute. We arrived exactly on time. The valet took our car, a 7-year-old Honda Civic that looked painfully out of place among the Mercedes and BMWs lining the circular drive. Inside, my mother greeted guests by the entrance. When she saw me, her smile flickered. Just for a second. Then it was back, bright and hollow. "Monica," she said. Not a hug. Not even a hand squeeze. Just my name, like she was checking me off a list. "Hi, Mom. Happy anniversary." "Yes. Thank you for coming." She looked past me, already scanning for the next arrival. That should have been my first clue. The second clue was the seating chart. There were round tables set up in the garden, 10 seats each, name cards in silver holders. I found mine tucked in the back corner, next to the bathroom entrance and the server station. Jake's card was beside mine. Emma's table was up front, next to my parents'. I could see her name card from where I stood, centered like a little throne. Jake touched my elbow. "It's fine," he said quietly. "We're here. That's what matters." But it wasn't fine. I could feel the stares. The whispers. Cousins I'd grown up with suddenly finding reasons to look away when I approached. Then my Aunt Linda, my father's sister, came up to me. She was one of the few family members who'd stayed in touch over the years. Sent Christmas cards. Called on my birthday. She hugged me, and when she pulled back, her eyes were sad. "Monica, honey," she whispered. "You shouldn't have come." My stomach dropped. "What?" She glanced around, then leaned closer. "Your sister's been telling everyone you've been trying to extort money from your parents. That you threatened to sue them. That you only came tonight to make a scene." The floor tilted under me. "That's not, I never." "I know," Aunt Linda said quickly. "I know you, sweetheart. But they don't. Emma's been working the room all week." I looked across the garden. Emma stood in a cluster of relatives, laughing, gesturing with her wine glass. When she caught my eye, she raised it toward me. A toast. A challenge. Jake was watching my face. "Monica, what's wrong?" I couldn't answer. I couldn't breathe. Dinner was served. I barely tasted it. My mind kept spinning, trying to understand. Why invite me just to humiliate me? Then my father stood up. Clinked his glass. The garden went quiet. "I want to thank you all for being here tonight," he began. His voice carried across the tables, smooth and commanding. 40 years ago, Catherine and I started a journey together. We built a family. We built a business. We built a legacy. Applause. Smiles. My mother dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. "Family has always been the center of everything we do," my father continued. "Loyalty. Integrity. Hard work. These are the values we've tried to pass down." He paused. His eyes swept the crowd and landed on me. "But sometimes," he said slowly, "you realize that not everyone shares those values." My heart stopped. Some people see family as a resource to exploit. A bank to draw from whenever they need something. His voice hardened. Some people forget that respect is earned. I felt 60 pairs of eyes turn toward me. Jake's hand found mine under the table. Squeezed hard. My father let the silence stretch. Then he smiled, raised his glass. But tonight isn't about that. Tonight is about celebrating the people who've stood by us. The people who matter. Everyone drank. Everyone except me. I sat there, frozen, my face burning. That's when my father looked directly at me and said it. Monica, I think it's time you left. I started to stand. To leave. To disappear like I always did. Then Jake stood up. Wait, he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the murmur of the crowd. My father frowned. Excuse me? I'd like to make a toast, Jake said. He picked up his wine glass. His hand was steady. If you're wondering what happened next, hit that like button and stick with me. This is where everything changes. My mother stepped forward. I don't think. It'll just take a minute, Jake interrupted. He looked at my father. You talked about loyalty and integrity. I think that's worth a toast, don't you? The tension in the air was thick enough to choke on. My father's jaw tightened. But he couldn't refuse. Not in front of everyone. Not without looking petty. Fine, he said. Make it quick. Jake nodded. He turned to face the crowd, still holding his glass. I've known the Sterling family for 7 years now, Jake began. His voice was calm, conversational. And I've learned a lot about loyalty in that time. I watched him, my heart pounding. For example, Jake continued, I learned that loyalty means showing up. Being present. Monica has been showing up for 7 years. To holidays she wasn't invited to. To phone calls that went unreturned. To a family that shut her out the moment she chose a different path. My mother's face went pale. I also learned about integrity, Jake said. Like the integrity it takes to build a $200 million company. He paused. Of course, it helps when you have a really good lawyer to navigate the zoning loopholes. And when that lawyer happens to be your daughter. Emma's smile vanished. Emma's done great work for Sterling Properties, Jake continued, his tone still light, still friendly. 12 commercial developments in 3 years. Impressive. Although I have to wonder, when the city council members who approved those projects also happen to be family friends who attended parties like this one, is that integrity? Or is that something else? The garden had gone completely silent. My father's face turned red. What exactly are you implying? I'm not implying anything, Jake said. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded stack of papers. I'm stating facts. He unfolded the papers slowly, deliberately. See, I work in construction. And over the past year, I've been working on a project in North Charleston. A community center for underserved kids. Monica's been helping coordinate it through her school. I stared at him. I knew about the community center. I'd been volunteering. But I didn't know. During that project, Jake continued, we had to pull a lot of permits. Which meant looking at a lot of public records. And I noticed something interesting. Sterling Properties has been buying up land in North Charleston for the past 18 months. Quietly. Through shell companies. My father's expression went carefully blank. Land that's currently zoned residential, Jake said. But there's a proposal pending with the city to rezone it commercial. A proposal being pushed by council members who, again, are here tonight. He gestured to a table near the front. Two older men in suits suddenly looked very uncomfortable. That rezone passes, Jake continued, and that land Sterling bought for pennies suddenly becomes worth millions. But here's the thing, the community center we're building? It's right in the middle of that land. And if Sterling Properties has their way, it gets shut down. 100 kids lose their after-school programs so your company can build luxury condos. The papers in Jake's hand weren't shaking. Neither was his voice. So when you talk about family values, Jake said, looking at my father, I have to ask, what values are those, exactly? The kind where you manipulate public policy for private profit? The kind where you sacrifice your own daughter's project to make a buck? My mother made a small sound. Almost a gasp. You have no idea what you're talking about, my father said. His voice was ice. I have every idea, Jake replied. I have meeting minutes. Email chains. Financial records. All public. All perfectly legal to obtain. He set the papers on the table. I also have a contact at the Charleston Post and Courier who's very interested in this story. About how one of Charleston's most prominent families has been using political connections to bypass community development regulations. Emma shot to her feet. This is insane. You can't. Can't what? Jake turned to her. Can't tell the truth? Can't ask questions about how Sterling Properties operates? Or can't embarrass you in front of your friends? You're trying to destroy us, Emma hissed. No, Jake said quietly. I'm trying to protect my wife. The woman you've been slandering for weeks. The woman you told everyone was trying to extort your parents when all she wanted was to be part of this family. He looked at me then. His eyes were soft. Monica has more integrity in her little finger than this entire family combined, he said. She teaches kids who have nothing. She shows up every day to a job that pays almost nothing because she believes in it. She's been trying to build something that actually helps people while you've all been busy building your egos. My throat was tight. I couldn't speak. Jake turned back to my father. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave that community center alone. You're going to withdraw your support for the rezone. And you're going to stop spreading lies about Monica. Or what? My father said coldly. Or I send these documents to the newspaper, Jake said simply. And we let the public decide what they think about the Sterling family values. The silence that followed was deafening. My father stood there, his face a mask. My mother looked like she might faint. Emma was pale, her hands clenched at her sides. Aunt Linda was smiling. Just barely. But I saw it. My father finally spoke. You wouldn't. Try me, Jake said. They stared at each other. Two men who'd never had a real conversation before tonight, locked in a battle neither could afford to lose. Then my father looked at me. Really looked at me. For the first time in years. Is this what you want? He asked. To tear this family apart? And I realized he still didn't get it. I stood up. My legs were shaking, but I stood. You already tore it apart, Dad, I said. My voice was steady. Stronger than I thought it would be. The day you decided I didn't matter because I chose a different life. The day you stopped calling. The day you erased me from this family because I wasn't the daughter you wanted. My mother flinched. I came here tonight because I thought, I hoped, maybe you'd changed. Maybe after 40 years of marriage, you'd learned something about love. About forgiveness. About accepting people as they are. I looked around the garden. At all the faces watching us. But you didn't invite me here to reconcile, I continued. You invited me here to humiliate me. To make yourselves feel righteous. To prove you were right about me all along. My father opened his mouth. Closed it. So yeah, I said. If that's what tearing this family apart looks like. Then I guess I do want that. Because this isn't a family. This is a performance. I picked up my purse. Jake took my hand. We're leaving now, I said. Not because you told me to. But because I choose to. And you're going to leave that community center alone. Not because Jake threatened you. But because it's the right thing to do. I started walking toward the exit. Behind me, my father called out, Monica. I didn't stop. We drove home in silence. When we pulled into our driveway, I finally broke down. 7 years of held-back tears came flooding out. Jake held me in the front seat of our Honda until I couldn't cry anymore. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm so sorry I dragged you into that. Are you kidding? Jake pulled back to look at me. That was the most important thing I've ever done. You could have just let me leave. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. His voice was firm. Monica, you've been carrying this weight for years. Thinking you weren't good enough. Thinking you deserved to be treated like that. I couldn't watch it anymore. But the documents, I said. How did you? He smiled, a little sheepish. Remember when I said I've been working on permits for the community center? I wasn't lying. And when I started seeing Sterling Properties' name pop up in weird places, I got curious. I pulled public records. Connected some dots. I wasn't planning to do anything with it, but then you got that invitation, and I had a feeling. You investigated my family. I protected my wife, he corrected. I started crying again. But this time, they were different tears. On Tuesday morning, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Hello? Monica. My father's voice. Tired. Older than I remembered. I froze. Jake looked up from his coffee. I'm calling to tell you that we've withdrawn our support for the North Charleston rezone, my father said stiffly. The city council voted against it yesterday. Your community center is safe. I didn't know what to say. Also, he continued, and his voice cracked slightly, your mother wants to know if you'd be willing to meet for lunch. Just the two of you. My hand tightened on the phone. Why? Because she's your mother, he said quietly. And because she spent the last 3 days crying. That was the last thing I expected. I don't know, Dad. I'm not asking you to forgive us, he said. I'm not asking you to forget what happened. I'm just asking you to consider it. Please. The please broke something in me. I'll think about it, I said finally. Thank you. He paused. Your husband was right. About a lot of things. I'm still angry about how he did it. But he was right. He hung up before I could respond. I met my mother the following week at a small cafe downtown. Neutral territory. She looked smaller than I remembered. Older. She'd been crying, I could see it in her eyes. We ordered coffee. Sat in awkward silence. I'm sorry, she said finally. 2 words. But they felt like they cost her everything. For what? I asked. Not cruel. Just honest. For. She looked down at her hands. For all of it. For making you feel like you had to choose between us and your own happiness. For cutting you out instead of fighting for you. For letting Emma. She trailed off. Lie about me? I finished. She nodded, her eyes welling up. I don't know what you want me to say, Mom. I don't want you to say anything, she whispered. I just want you to know that I see it now. What we did. What I did. And I'm ashamed. I sat with that for a moment. Do you know what the hardest part was? I said. It wasn't the money. It wasn't the fancy parties or the big house. It was feeling like I wasn't enough. Like the life I chose wasn't valuable because it wasn't your life. It is valuable, my mother said, her voice breaking. What you do, teaching, helping those kids, it matters more than anything your father and I have built. I just couldn't see it. If you're watching this and you've ever had to set boundaries with family, drop a comment. Sometimes the hardest thing is choosing yourself. Let me know you're here. Why couldn't you see it? I asked. She was quiet for a long time. Because I was afraid, she finally said. Afraid that if you didn't need us, you wouldn't want us. Afraid that your independence meant we'd failed as parents. Your father and I, we built everything on control. On image. On doing things the right way. And when you rejected that, it felt like you were rejecting us. I wasn't rejecting you, I said softly. I was trying to be myself. I know that now. We talked for 2 hours. It wasn't easy. There were tears. There were hard truths. There were moments I wanted to leave. But I stayed. At the end, my mother asked the question I knew was coming. Can we try again? Can we be a family again? I thought about it. Really thought about it. I don't know, I said honestly. What happened at that party, that wasn't just one mistake. That was years of choices. Years of you choosing image over me. Of Dad choosing the business over his daughter. Of Emma being rewarded for cruelty. I know. So if we're going to try, I continued, it has to be different. You don't get to dictate my life. You don't get to criticize my choices. You don't get to make me feel small because I don't fit your expectations. Okay, my mother said quickly. I'm not finished. I held her gaze. You also need to deal with Emma. What she did, spreading those lies, setting me up at your party, that was calculated. That was cruel. And if you want me in your life, you need to hold her accountable. My mother's face fell. Monica. I'm serious, Mom. I won't be part of a family where that kind of behavior is tolerated. Emma needs to apologize. Publicly. To everyone she lied to. And she needs to mean it. She won't. Then we don't have anything else to talk about. I stood up. Started to gather my things. Wait. My mother grabbed my hand. I'll talk to her. I promise. Just, please. Give us a chance. I looked at our hands. Hers, perfectly manicured, shaking slightly. Mine, ink-stained from grading papers. One chance, I said. That's all. Emma showed up at my house 3 weeks later. I almost didn't let her in. She stood on my porch in jeans and a sweater, no Chanel suit, no perfect hair. She looked tired. "Can we talk?" she asked. I wanted to say no. Every instinct screamed at me to close the door. But Jake touched my shoulder. "Your call," he whispered. I let her in. We sat in my living room, the living room she'd never seen before, in the house she'd never visited. She looked around like she was seeing an alien planet. "I'm sorry," she said. I waited. "I was jealous," Emma continued, her voice small. "You got out. You built a life that didn't revolve around them. And I couldn't. I'm 32 years old, and I still need Dad's approval for everything. I hate it. But I don't know how to stop." "So you decided to destroy me instead?" "I decided to prove I was the good daughter," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I thought if I made you look bad enough, they'd finally see me. Really see me. But all that happened was I became exactly what they taught me to be, cruel and calculating and empty." I didn't know what to say. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," Emma said. "I know I don't deserve that. I just wanted you to know that I see what I did. And I hate myself for it." We sat in silence. The clock on the wall ticked. "I forgive you," I said finally. Emma looked up, shocked. "Not for you," I clarified. "For me. Because carrying around that anger is exhausting. But forgiveness doesn't mean trust. That, you'll have to earn." She nodded. "How?" "By becoming your own person," I said. "By standing up to them when they're wrong. By choosing integrity over approval." "Can you do that?" "I don't know," she whispered. "But I want to try." 6 months have passed since that anniversary party. Things with my family are complicated. But they're better. My parents came to my school's winter concert. My mom brought flowers for my classroom. My dad shook hands with my principal and didn't say a single word about salaries or prestige. Emma quit the family firm. She's working at a non-profit now, doing environmental law. She calls me every Sunday. We're not close, not yet, but we're talking. The community center opened in November. Jake and I were there for the ribbon cutting. 100 kids poured through those doors, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I'd done something that mattered in a way my family could finally understand. My father wrote a check. A big one. Anonymously, or at least, he tried. I recognized his handwriting on the card. Are we one big happy family now? No. I don't know if we'll ever be that. But we're honest. And for us, that's enough. Here's what I learned from all of this. Family isn't about blood. It's not about tradition or legacy or maintaining an image. Family is about showing up. About choosing each other every day, even when it's hard. My parents loved me, they still love me. But for years, they loved the idea of who I should be more than they loved the person I actually was. And I let that define me. I let their disappointment become my shame. It took Jake standing up in a garden full of strangers to show me that I was worth defending. That my choices were valid. That my life had value even if it didn't look like theirs. And it took me walking away to show them that love without acceptance isn't really love at all. If this story hit home for you, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me your story. You're not alone. And sometimes, knowing that makes all the difference. You don't owe your family a version of yourself that makes them comfortable. You don't have to shrink to fit their expectations. You don't have to earn your worth by becoming someone you're not. And if they can't see you for who you are, that's not your failure. That's theirs. My name is Monica. I'm a middle school teacher in North Charleston. I drive a Honda Civic and buy my dresses off the sale rack. I don't have a corner office or a trust fund or a seat at the head table. But I have a husband who loves me enough to burn bridges for me. I have students who write me thank you notes at the end of the year. I have a life I chose, built with my own hands, on my own terms. And that's worth more than any inheritance.